So, I don't know if you guys have heard because of the lack of Wi-Fi back here, but the IDF has confirmed the death of Yahya Sinwar, the Hamas leader, and I'll come to that in just a moment. But let me start by laying out what we hope to achieve over the course of the next 24 hours in Berlin. This is the president's first visit to Berlin as president, and he did not want his time in office to go by without going to the capital of one of our most important partners and allies. Germany is a core ally in NATO, a core partner in the G7. They've been a core player in the Allied response to Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine. And the president is looking forward to having the opportunity to talk to the chancellor and other German officials about where we go from here in Ukraine, about developments in the Middle East, in Iran, Lebanon, Gaza, Israel, about how we align our respective approaches on the PRC, about how we align our industrial and innovation strategies, about artificial intelligence and the clean energy transition. He will also have the opportunity to meet with the Prime Minister of the UK and the President of France. The four leaders, Germany, France, UK, US, will sit together to particularly focus on two issues. One, the war in Ukraine and the pathway ahead, particularly in light of the fact that they've all had the opportunity to engage in person with President Zelensky over the course of the last few weeks and heard from him about where he sees things going. So this is an opportunity to consult on that. And then second, to talk about the ongoing and fast-moving developments across the Middle East region. The president will see President Steinmeier. He'll spend one-on-one time with Chancellor Scholz. He'll spend time with his delegation, with Chancellor Scholz and his delegation. And then, of course, there'll be this meeting among the four leaders in the afternoon, and there'll be an opportunity for press statements with the Chancellor and the President. So that's the plan for tomorrow. Of course, this comes against the backdrop of a pretty significant, very significant day in the Middle East, and that is that Yahya Sinwar has been taken off the battlefield. This is a murderous terrorist responsible for the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. He has a lot of blood on his hands, Israeli blood, American blood, Palestinian blood, and the world is better now that he's gone. President Biden has just put out a written statement sharing his thoughts and reactions to the death of Sinwar. And he looks forward to the opportunity soon, perhaps very shortly, to speak to Prime Minister Netanyahu to congratulate the IDF and the brave Israeli soldiers and security professionals who carried out the operation that killed Sinwar, but also to talk about the way forward, because Sinwar was a massive obstacle to peace and the day after in Gaza. And now that that obstacle has been removed, President Biden looks forward to talking to Prime Minister Netanyahu about how we secure the return of the hostages, an end to the war, and a move to the day after in Gaza, a Gaza where Hamas is no longer in power or control. So they'll have the opportunity to have an initial conversation about that. But this truly is an opportunity we need to seize together to bring about a better day for the people of Gaza, the people of Israel, the people of the whole region. And the United States is committed to doing everything in our power to help contribute to that. The last thing I will say is that from shortly after October 7th, President Biden dispatched special operations personnel and intelligence professionals to Israel to work side by side with their Israeli counterparts in the hunt for Hamas leaders, including Sinwar. And it was with American intelligence help that many of these leaders, including Sinwar, were hunted and tracked, flushed out of their hiding places and put on the run. And ultimately, this is a credit to the IDF for taking out Sinwar over the course of the last hours and days, but we're proud of the support that the United States has given to the IDF all along the way. So with that, I'd be happy to take your questions.
Can you say anything? Oh, God.
Jake, thanks so much for doing this. You kind of implied that Sinwar had been an obstacle to hostage release and ceasefire. How big an obstacle is that, and does this give you additional hope now of a ceasefire? and possibly a hostage release? How should we process this?
I didn't just imply it, I stated it explicitly. At various points along the way, Sinwar was more interested in causing mayhem and chaos and death than in actually trying to achieve a ceasefire and hostage deal. And we repeatedly saw moments where it was him in particular who stood in the way of making progress towards a ceasefire and hostage deal. Now, there were other obstacles too along the way, but he was certainly a critical one. And yes, I think his removal from the battlefield does present an opportunity to find a way forward that gets the hostages home, brings the war to an end, brings us to a day after. That's something we're going to have to talk about with our Israeli counterparts. Of course, there are still other Hamas actors who need to be brought to justice, and there are hostages, including Americans, being held by terrorists. We're going to have to deal with all of that, but we believe there is a renewed opportunity right now that we would like to seize.
Yeah. Do you assess this as being the cutting off of the head of the Hydra, or what's your assessment of Hamas's capabilities from now on? Is there going to be a mop-up, and what would you recommend the Israelis do?
Sinwar was a critical figure operationally, militarily, and politically for Hamas. He had, in fact, consolidated control of both the political and military wing under his singular leadership in recent weeks and months. And so this is a very significant event. But what exactly it means for the future of Hamas as an organization, it's early days yet. We will have to see. What we do know is that the broad military structure, the battalions of Hamas, have been systematically dismantled. We do know that Hamas does not pose the kind of threat to Israel that it posed on October 7th or anything close to it. We also know that there are still Hamas terrorists wielding guns and holding hostages and harboring a desire to continue to attack Israel and attack others. And so we're going to have to sort through all of that. But this is an incredibly significant blow to Hamas. It is the removal of someone who, as I said, was unique in the consolidation of the control of the Hamas apparatus under his command. And now we will have to work to ensure that his death actually does deal the kind of long-term blow to Hamas that all of us would like to see.
Do you think Netanyahu is done now, that he's reached his objectives? Yeah. You just laid out the decimation of Hamas.
There's a critical objective that has not been reached. That objective is the return of the hostages, including American hostages. So from the United States' perspective, we now need to work with Israel, with Qatar and Egypt, with others, and this is something we'll discuss with our European partners as well, to secure the release of those hostages. We'd like to see that happen.
You referenced